flooded cities and fallen kings. The brutal battles that forged the Qin dynasty after sent his son's head to Ying Zheng. The now desperate King Shi of Yan succeeded, delaying the complete annexation of his kingdom for a few short years before Qin returned to destroy them definitively in 222 BC. Ying Zheng began his attacks on the states of Wei and Chu simultaneously, fearing that one state would exploit the fact that Qin was only focused on the other and surprise the Qin armies. Two of Ying Zheng's most trusted generals, a father-son duo named Wang Jian and Wang Ben, launched simultaneous attacks on the two states in 225 BC. While Wang Jian began Qin's invasion of the large and incredibly powerful state of Chu, his son Wang Ben led an army of 600,000 men to conquer 10 cities along Wei's northern border, thus protecting their flank. Wei collapsed quite easily after Wang Ben cleverly diverted the waters of the Yellow River to flood the capital, Daliang. 100,000 people, many of them civilians, were killed in the floods. The king surrendered, allowing all of Qin's manpower to be focused on the powerful state of Chu. Their initial attacks on Chu were not particularly successful, as the Qin army was pushed back and repelled. Wang Jian was recalled from retirement 2 years after their initial sieges, with an army 3 times larger than before, and the capital fell. The king was captured, the state was annexed, and only one state remained to be captured, Qi. In 221 BC, Ying Zheng's men faced very little resistance and conquered the kingdom in the same year. When Qin reached the capital, the king of Qi simply surrendered the land without a fight. All the warring states had been conquered. Thus began the Qin dynasty, ruling under the iron fist of Ying Zheng. Qin dynasty. Although they showed great promise and power in the warring states period, prompting Ying Zheng to declare that his dynasty would rule for 10,000 generations, the Qin dynasty's cycle was relatively short, lasting about 15 years from 221 BC to 206 BC. Despite this, their effects proved to be very important and lasting through the subsequent centuries. The name China comes from Qin. In contrast to the feudal Zhou dynasty, whose fragmentation eventually led to the dynasty's fall, the Qin dynasty enacted centralization and intense suppression of the state's citizens. Ying Zheng's major efforts included registering every citizen with the government, directing the flow of taxes to the state instead of feudal lords, and dividing the land into commanderies, each ruled by an appointed official serving as part of his rule. He also aimed to standardize currencies, writing systems, and weights. China became a unified empire, and Ying Zheng was its first true emperor. The Qin dynasty was known for its brutality and harsh punishments. As legalists, they believed that people are born evil, and the only way to maintain a civilized society is to use horrific criminal penalties, deterring potentially rebellious citizens through fear alone. Ying Zheng needed everyone in China to understand that he alone ruled the land. Government workers and military personnel were also subjected to collective punishments to hold entire work groups responsible for their work. If one man neglected his duties, it would be at the expense of the entire group's well-being. The life of a peasant under Qin, and in ancient China in general, was extremely arduous. Peasants worked long, strenuous hours, usually in one of two fields: agriculture or silk weaving. Entertainment was used to relieve the stresses of long workdays. Theater and dance were very popular, and former military training games like Kuju, a game similar to hacky sack, were adopted to pass the time. The Qin state was a patriarchal society, and life could be very difficult for women. They mostly stayed home to care for children and tend to the house, and had little to no say in marital issues, land acquisitions or sales, or daily local procedures. The peasants did not particularly like the emperor and hated him for his harsh punishments and adoption of legalism. It wasn't just his own people that Ying Zheng feared. The nomadic tribes, especially the Xiongnu, believed to be ancestors of the Huns, constantly terrorized Qin's northern borders. In mountainous areas, the wall was built from mountain stones, while rammed earth was used on the plains. Although Qin did not see the wall as a permanent solution, the project would continue over many subsequent centuries to form the Great Wall of China we know today. Although he conquered the warring states at only 38 years old, survived 3 assassination attempts during his reign, and had now fortified the Qin state, there was one enemy Ying Zheng could not defeat: death itself. As Ying Zheng reached middle age, he became obsessed with his own mortality and began searching for various elixirs and potions to prolong his life. He sent alchemists and explorers on voyages around the Pacific Ocean to find the mythical Penglai Island, whose mountain allegedly held the elixir of immortality. Ying Zheng was so desperate that he couldn't comprehend he was being deceived, especially by Xu Fu, the leader of these expeditions. On the first voyage, Xu Fu was sent with 3,000 virgin boys and girls in 60 boats, but returned empty-handed, of course, because the island was mythical. Perhaps fearing the consequences of the failed mission, Xu Fu and the explorers returning from the voyage claimed their passage was hindered by giant sea creatures. Ying Zheng obliged and again provided everything requested, although Xu Fu and his crew never returned from the voyage. Exactly what happened remains unknown to this day, although the most common theory is that Xu Fu simply sailed to Japan and colonized it. Growing increasingly paranoid and desperate, Ying Zheng began consuming potions made by his alchemists. Around this time, the now famous series of book burnings and live burials occurred as Ying Zheng became completely mad. Wishing to erase all history and ideologies he deemed detrimental to his rule in the Qin dynasty, Ying Zheng ordered 460 Confucian scholars buried alive and destroyed many of their texts in mass book burnings, which were the first documented book burnings in human history. Shortly thereafter, and in a cruel irony, Ying Zheng's quest for eternal life led to his death at the age of 49. The concoctions supplied by his personal alchemist contained high levels of mercury, which killed the emperor by poisoning. Before the emperor's death, he ordered the construction of a large mausoleum to house his body. The scale and detail of each soldier shocked archaeologists. No two warriors had the same features, and just like a real army, they were divided by military rank in battle formation. Each one was equipped with a real weapon, never used in battle. There are clear signs of mass production just to arm the terracotta warriors with new, undamaged weapons. Ying Zheng clearly decided that if he couldn't conquer death, he would conquer the afterlife. Much mystery still surrounds the terracotta warriors. We don't know exactly who built the Grand Mausoleum or why there is no documented history of its construction. It is estimated that its construction took over 700,000 workers. Because of this mystery and the sheer scale of the discoveries, Ying Zheng's terracotta army is referred to as the eighth wonder of the world. Li Si sought to prevent him from gaining more political power than he already had, as Fusu was associated with a general who rivaled Li Si in court. The two would surely overthrow him if they were in control. Li Si returned the king's body to the capital in a merchant caravan, carrying rotting fish to hide the smell of death. He then created a fake document allegedly written by Ying Zheng, ordering both Fusu and the general to commit suicide. The plan succeeded, and with both targets dead, another son of the emperor took power. This son was Qin Shi, who quickly proved to be far less competent than his widely feared father. He was spoiled, selfish, incredibly childish, and murderous. However, Li Si would not take power. Qin Shi would suspect him and others of corruption and treason. Li Si was sentenced to death by 1,000 cuts. This execution method involved the condemned person being subjected to a series of cuts or slices on various parts of their body. The goal was not to cause immediate death, but to prolong the condemned's suffering. Additionally, to top it off, all members of his family up to the third degree were executed. Quickly exploiting the weakened state, mass rebellions began. Liu Bang, a peasant under the Qin dynasty, led a major uprising and took control of the land after a fierce clash known as the Battle of Gaixia, in which more than 100,000 men were killed or captured. Thus began the incredibly successful Han Dynasty. With his victory, Liu Bang seized the title of emperor, changed his name to Gaozu, and established the new Han state capital in Chang'an. It was one of the few remaining parts of the destroyed Qin state where a palace still stood, making the decision rather easy. Han was the most populous state in the world and was contemporary with the Roman Empire. After taking power, Gaozu established Chinese policies that would last for thousands of years. Taxes were significantly reduced, especially in areas particularly damaged by the wars. Many slaves were also freed. Confucianism was reinstated as the main school of thought and taught in the state's new imperial academy. Family loyalty and virtue once again became the foundational pillars of Chinese society, not fear or punishment. Gaozu also established the civil service system to prevent lazy and unqualified men from holding important political positions. The ruling class was based on merit and education rather than family connections. This government system would last until 1912 AD, nearly 2,000 years later. Although Gaozu and his Han state had secured power, the empire was far from safe. The same nomadic Xiongnu who threatened Qin still posed a serious threat. and the loyalty of many Han generals was questionable at best. After a series of humiliating defeats at the hands of the Xiongnu, Gaozu made peace with the tribes and agreed to pay tribute. Wine and women were presented to the Xiongnu annually to maintain peace. Gaozu died in 195 BC, leading to a power struggle to claim the throne. Although Hui, Gaozu's second son, became the next emperor, the true ruler of Han was Hui's mother, Gaozu's empress consort, Empress Lu. She killed many of his sons to ensure her power after Gaozu's death, although her most famous killing was that of Gaozu's favorite concubine, Lady Qi. Lady Qi also had children with Gaozu, and Lu wanted no competition. Sima Qian, a historian from the Han Dynasty, wrote, "Empress Lu cut off Lady Qi's hands and feet, gouged out her eyes, burned her ears, gave her a potion to drink that made her mute, threw her into the latrine, and called her the human swine." Emperor Hui was so disgusted and utterly despondent by his murderous mother's actions that he essentially handed her ruling power. He lived a short life of drinking and sex until his death in 188 BC at the age of 22. A few rulers gained and lost power over the next few decades, maintaining a relative sense of peace and prosperity given the ongoing conflict with the Xiongnu. In 141 BC, Emperor Wu became the leader of Han and ruled for 57 years until 87 BC. Around this time, relations with the Xiongnu reached a boiling point, and an all-out war began in 133 BC. A few Han men were sent west during the war to search for potential allies against the Xiongnu. China's silk trade was hindered by the tribes, and Han sought alliances with Western peoples to fight the Xiongnu. What they brought back was knowledge about the civilizations, trade and economies of the Western world, India, and the Middle East. A trade route called the Silk Road was established, extending from China all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. The name Silk Road came from the Greek word for China, Ceres, which translates to land of silk. China would rely on the Silk Road for trade for over 1,500 years. The Silk Road allowed for unprecedented cultural exchange, leading to the introduction of Buddhism to China. Although whether Emperor Wu was aware of the religion during his time is unknown today, Han territory expanded significantly during this time of war, as they won many major battles against the Xiongnu tribes. Despite their victories, the Han treasury was depleted of all resources poured into the conflict. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers died, while heavy taxes were imposed on the peasants to fund the war, leading to a period of rebellion and instability. Qin Dynasty. In 9 AD, a rising politician named Wang Ben exploited Han's precarious state and established the extremely short-lived Qin Dynasty. Wang Ben seized all the empire's land and redistributed it to the peasants, earning him the historical nickname Socialist Emperor of China. Policies like this were not well received by wealthy citizens. The empire was left in dire straits after a series of natural disasters and famine, creating another period of instability and rebellion. Just like the previous Western Han, the Qin dynasty also failed to eliminate the Xiongnu threat on China's northern border, draining the treasury once again. The people of Qin had had enough. Two main rebel groups emerged at this time, the Red Eyebrows and the Lulin. The name Red Eyebrows came from the rebels painting their eyebrows red to distinguish themselves from those who supported the government and the ruling class. They were seen as a more barbarian-like presence due to their brutal treatment of local populations and their desecration of Han tombs. The Red Eyebrows were trapped in a state of constant chaos and frequent deaths in their later years of fighting. The Red Eyebrows surrendered to Lu Xu, one of the 11 self-proclaimed emperors at the time, who participated in the contemporary Lulin rebellion against Wang Ben. Lu Xu, or Emperor Guangwu, was very generous and pardoned the Red Eyebrows before beginning his conquest of the entire empire.